Good afternoon, and thank you for joining our second series session of Jumping Back In. My name is Ashley Ellerby, and I am a Business Solutions Specialist at Gordon Food Service, and I will be your moderator for today's session. Today, we will hear from a panel of leaders in the restaurant industry who will discuss some of their approaches to current issues and the ever-changing landscape that the restaurant industry is currently facing. Before allowing each of these panelists to introduce themselves, there are a couple of housekeeping notes that I will cover. So just a reminder for everyone that is on this session, this is a webinar, so you can see and hear us, but we cannot hear you. We highly encourage your engagement on this session from the audience. So if you do have a question, on the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a little questions tab that you can open up and then type in your questions. Please don't hesitate to type those in. We will stop frequently throughout the session to answer all of the questions. And if we don't get to all of them by the end of this 1 hour, then we will follow up later with email. So without further ado, I'm going to start with Rick, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi everyone, my name is Rick Rambo. I am the managing member of WIZ KEY Enterprises, and we own a chain of restaurants, 9 restaurants, called Best Burger Barn. We're primarily located in North Texas, and almost all of our restaurants are in rural or suburban areas. We don't have restaurants in the big cities, so our impact is a little different from what COVID has done for us and kind of how we deal with things. Our restaurants, if we did publish our information, we're a privately held company. Myself and Byron Rose, Arthur Byron Rose, he goes by Byron, is my partner. He's not with us today. If we were to publish our information, we would be number 73 on the 200 Nations Restaurant Reviews. So we're pretty well known throughout the state and even nationally. We're kind of known as the Burger Boys. We get a lot of awards for our burgers and things, so we're kind of out in the public front, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, as you well know, if you have a successful restaurant. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Ashley, for hosting this for us. And my background is I'm a PhD nurse and a lawyer, so I can probably answer some other questions that you may have as well. If you have questions maybe on cleaning policies or something like that that you may want to implement, I can kind of bring in my nurse background on that as well. We're a certified veteran-owned business. I was a Marine, and the restaurants have been in business since 2007.
Thank you. And now Phil.
Hi, my name is Phil Nicosia. I own Pallotta's Italian Grill, located over in the Woodlands area of Texas. We've been in business for a little bit over 25 years now. Family owned, one owner, just a local community restaurant that has gotten a ton of community support. We are full service. We have a full bar. We do catering. We also have a small private room that holds about 65 people. So just full-fledged restaurant, and just been trying to survive through all this. So.
Thank you, Phil. And then Charlie. Thank you, Phil. And then Charlie.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. My name is Charlie Haslup. I work over at DoorDash as a relationship manager for our partner referral program with Gordon Food Services. I've been at DoorDash for about 2 years, working with restaurants on Marketplace, and also working with restaurants on handling their in-house delivery and utilizing third-party through DoorDash Drive. So really excited to help answer any questions about delivery, not just DoorDash as a whole, but having worked on a couple different sides of our business, just delivery in general.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you. So we are going to jump right into it. Again, if you guys have questions, just type them in, and I will we'll stop throughout to make sure that we get those answered. I guess to start with you, Charlie, you kind of explained it a little bit, but I guess for everyone on the line that is not aware, can you explain how the current partnership between DoorDash and Gordon Food Service works, and what's the advantage to utilizing DoorDash through a Gordon Food Service referral, or the difference between that and then using a local rep out in their area?
Yeah, awesome. So for all the restaurant owners, I'm sure you're used to hearing the percentages and costs of you working with services like DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats. And so really the advantage of working with us through Gordon Food Services is that we're offering a preferred rate working with them, where typically, it's 30% and 25% for pickup. Working with Gordon Food Services, we have that at a rate of 26%, and that does include our Dash Pass service, which we call basically our Amazon Prime service, where customers pay $9.99 a month to receive free delivery from restaurants that are enrolled. So by enrolling through Gordon Food Services, that is something that is made available. Typically in cities and suburbs around those cities, Dash Pass customers account for about 30 to 40% of those orders. So it's a big opportunity to capture those customers paying for that service where they're ordering delivery multiple times a week. The other is that the pickup rate that we offer, if you guys would like to enroll in pickup, is 12%, where it's typically 25%. And the other is that we're keeping available throughout this entire process and until further notice, a 0% introductory for the first 30 days for all locations that enroll.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure, since that's kind of a new partnership, if everyone's aware of that, and if anyone has questions on that, please don't hesitate to ask us. So I guess for you, Rick and Phil, and just everyone, what has been the biggest challenge when reopening your restaurants? We started at 25%, at 50%, and then now in the state of Texas, we're at 75% capacity. What's been your biggest challenge to date?
Phil, I'll let you go first because you're.
I appreciate that. I think just getting people to come out. It's been a few weeks we've been doing this now, but there's still so many people who are hesitant to go out. So getting them to really feel comfortable in the surroundings is important. Making sure that you're following all the protocols that have been set forth. Advertising it, putting it on social media, letting people know what you're doing, I think is really important. Anyone who's going to write a review or go on these foodie groups and all that, them getting the word out is really important for you as well. I think the biggest issue is, 75% doesn't mean anything if you can't space your tables the right way. So 50%, 75% is not a big difference depending on the dining room that you have. So, and then also making sure that you can still accommodate all the to-go orders and deliveries and everything as well, that you can now do 2 different styles of business hand in hand, side by side, and that they don't interfere with each other. So just making sure you're setting forth with all that stuff. So
absolutely. What about for you, Rick? Anything to add? While he's doing that, with you said with the to-go and in the delivery, is that get any time, Phil, in the restaurant overwhelming when you are at that capacity and then you're still receiving to-go orders than you normally were?
Yeah, it's funny because we just use DoorDash. We don't use these other delivery services, and of course we've got our phones ringing with regular to-go orders and online orders that we have. It comes in surges. So we might go an hour and a half with 1 or 2 or 3 DoorDash orders. The next thing you know, we've got like 12 or 13 of them all at one time. And of course, we also have the dine-in business as well. So we've been able to implement a really good system. We haven't opened our bar. Our bar area is basically shut down, and we're using that as a queuing station to bag up all of our orders and have everything nice and organized, because that's an essential part of it as well. It's great having the orders, but if you're dropping the ball and not sending out the right orders or the wrong bags, then you're shooting yourself in the foot. So we've opted not to have bar patrons sitting at the bar and rather continue to use that area for a queuing station to be more efficient. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ashley. I've been muting to prevent feedback, so then I had to search for the unmute button. I didn't find it best. So for us, I would echo all the things that Phil said. A little differently than Phil, we have opened our bars. Our bars opened when we were at 25%. One of the things that I would direct whoever's on doing right now is there are a number of really great apps that are available for you to arrange your table seating. So you can actually use the app and you can type in the distance that you want your tables to be apart, type in how many 4 tops, 6 tops, so on, whatever number of tops you have on your tables, and enter it into the app, and the app will rearrange all your tables. We did that both at 25%, at 50%, and now we're open at 75%. And that has really helped us identify where to put our tables and how to get the maximum amount of space possible in the space that we have. So there are a couple of apps available. I don't have the names of them right now. I can certainly look them up, and maybe you can post them as a follow-up, Ashley.
Yes.
Or I can. I don't know how to do it, but I'm happy to do so. But those apps are really helpful in making sure that, you know, as opposed to you just going in there and kind of, well, I think we can put that one there and then hand measure it. You just drag your tables over onto this app, and it puts them all in the spot that you need once you have identified what the parameters are that you want your tables in there. We found that to be a very helpful app. It's free. There are a couple that are $2.99, and there are a couple that have in-app purchases. So if you want to save it, you have to pay a fee. But if you don't want to save it, you just want to do it, set the tables up, you can do that. So there's a couple of free ones and a couple that cost and a couple that are expensive. I would just recommend that you choose whichever one is right for you to do that. Our bars are open.
Sorry, come through. They do want to know, so I'll follow up with you after to make sure that we send that out.
Okay. Our bars are open. We opened our bars at the same time as the 25%. We have had the same struggles that Phil was talking about with people actually coming in, but at the same time, we're located not in the typical urban centers. So because of that, we're frequently one of maybe 5 or 6 games in town, and either fortunately for us or unfortunately for the others, many of the restaurants chose not to open at 25% because they didn't think that it was going to be helpful to them. So when we opened, we saw lines sometimes all the way around the building waiting to get in to be seated. So we implemented things like service times at the tables. All of our food is cooked fresh to order, I'm sure, like Phil. So, you know, our burgers are not just sitting there. They all have to be made from scratch when they're ordered. So we generally have a 12 to 14, 12 to 15 minute table time from the time the order gets to the kitchen. So we implemented a seating time, and we're not afraid to walk through the table and go, out. There's a line there. We also, we're kind of referred to as a couple of rednecks that happen to own a restaurant chain. So we take a little bit of pride in that, and our social media sometimes gets a little sassy. We don't really tolerate people going on and talking crap about how they had to wait for their food, or about, you know, I went in there and they were wearing gloves, and, you know, we're not afraid to go on there and say, look, idiot, gloves are a false sense of security. Okay. We wash our hands frequently. Every 3 or 4 minutes, we're washing our hands. So, you know, don't give us a hard time about the gloves. And we're also not afraid to say, if you were that unhappy in this time of all this uncertainty and everybody working hard and doing the best they can to serve you, if you're upset because you got cheese on your burger when you didn't want cheese, you can go get a burger somewhere else. I mean, we're just not afraid to say stuff like that. So, you know, our approach isn't necessarily, you know, we kind of think of ourselves as the Wendy's approach. If you've ever read Wendy's Twitter and Wendy's feedback on social media, they're a little sassy sometimes about things. They just don't tolerate it. So we kind of took that lead about a year and a half ago. We used to be very, you know, the customer is always right. But in this era where there's a lot of misinformation floating around out there and a lot of concerns that are unfounded, no. And that, yeah. So we take a little bit of pride in being a bit sassy. So anyway, so everything that Phil said, and then I would add on a few of those things. But I would really recommend using one of those apps to get the benefit of table placement.
Yes, and we'll send that out after. I like your approach, though. That's unique. So if it was only a year and a half ago, did that take a learning curve for some of your, did you lose some people, some customers after? kind of telling them how it is?
I'm sure we did, but we were always doing that in the restaurant. So, you know, we would have people come in the restaurant and it might be their first visit and they didn't know we cooked from scratch, and they would come in on a lunch rush, and then we would tell them, you know, it'll be about 10 to 15 minutes before you get your food. And we had a couple of people abuse our staff, and you guys don't know me very well, but I have no problems walking up to someone and using my full height and Marine disposition and say, you know what, there's the door and there's a McDonald's down the street. So if you'd like that kind of food and you'd like it that fast, you can just walk your ass right out that door. You don't need to stay here. So there were some guests who'd already seen that happen, and so I don't think many of our guests, or at least our long-term guests, were that surprised about our approach on social media.
That's great. So we realized that for a lot of operators, this is the time that they're repricing, restructuring their menu, whether making it smaller or just changing the prices in general. Have either of you or any of you made any changes to your menu? And if so, how have you communicated those to your customers?
We obviously made some changes as we deemed necessary. We took a few items off that were either higher dollar items during all of this, or that weren't selling as much, especially to go, things like steak and salmon and so on. Eggplant Parmesan, it's a volatile product that doesn't last very long if you don't use it within the day. So we stopped selling that for a while. We've obviously switched to a paper menu. And if you've ever seen our menu, you know we have a big menu. Gordon Ramsay would tear my head off if he ever saw my menu. But I have cooks who have been with me for 10, 15, 20 years. So our execution and consistency is there. So we've always ran with what we've always offered. So now we just have a big front and back 11 by 17 menu with small print. So this way we could still offer our guests what they wanted. We did the family packs and those did great. But I think one reason that we still succeeded in all of this is because we have continued to offer basically our full menu with the exception of like 5 items. When you've been around for this long, people want what they want. And to be able to give that to them was really a success for us. We're looking to the future, and I had just printed these wonderful menus prior to all of this, full glossy, just beautiful menus. And unfortunately, I'm very sad to say that those are going in the trash now because we'll never be able to go back to them because we've made changes to the menu at this point. We've made some price changes, adjustments, nothing drastic, but to help accommodate with the cost of the to-go supplies and the cost of the products that have risen. We have made some price adjustments, and kind of at this point, it's hard to go back once you make those adjustments to them. So we're now looking into what we have to do when this thing is said and done, whenever that'll be, as to what our new menu will look like, and unfortunately have to bear the cost on that as well. So it's a good thing and a bad thing, but yeah, we've had to make some adjustments for sure.
What's been the feedback? How have you communicated that? Is it just when people come in, they notice, or online as well?
It's pretty obvious our menus have changed because of what our prior menu looked like. Imagine Cheesecake Factory's menu, but not as big, not that big Bible without the advertisements, but beautiful, lots of color, lots of photos and all that. And now it's just front and back piece of paper, which really saddens me because I loved our menus. But their understanding of it, we've tried to offer the QR code for people to look at menus when they come in, and that's gone with a little bit of success, but mainly we're just doing the paper menus. I'm actually hoping to go laminate some of these front and back menus right now to help take on some of the costs, because we're going through a ton of menus right now, and that's going to equate to about $600 to $700 a month if we keep this up, and that's just not good for business either. So we're going to try a couple different ways, and a lot of our guests know what they want as well, but they still take that menu. So
we actually had a question come in, and I'm sure that all of you or both of you could definitely answer this. How has the massive uptick in to-go orders affected your cost of goods sold with the added paper expense that doesn't affect the dine-in orders? And this could kind of be also on the DoorDash side, you know, because you guys how's that price changing? I guess with your prices on your third party delivery. So how are you guys handling that?
Yeah, Rick.
Yeah, we are. It hasn't affected our cost of goods sold because we'd always had that in there. You know, we generally use red plastic. You know, those red plastic baskets. We generally use those for our dine-in for burgers and fries. But we've always accounted for disposables in our food cost calculation. So for us, it didn't add any more than we had already been doing. I mean, yes, there is a dollar amount that got bigger because we used more disposables, but in terms of the bottom line margins, it didn't really affect us at all. The one thing that it did do is because we stopped using dishes and silverware in the restaurants, one of the things that I would encourage you to do, although Ashley may reach through the computer and smack me upside the head for this, but one of the things I would encourage you to do is to sit down with your rep and to identify items that might be an alternative to maybe one of the more expensive to-go boxes that you have. I'm going to give you one example, but I won't give you the price, but I'll give you a percentage. We moved from a 9-inch by 9-inch box, and what we were doing instead of the baskets and the silverware is we would cut those to-go boxes in half, and we would use each side as a serving tray. And that's how we did that. But I will tell you that there are options that are, I'm making up the number because I don't want to tell you the number because I don't want to get in trouble, but say $50 a case of 1,000 for the 9 by 9 inch, and you can get the 8 by 8 inch for, in our case, $16 a case, right? So the only way you're really going to know that is by going into your order guide that is on your app, on your Gordon app that you all should be using, and identifying and looking in there and see what the alternatives are that Gordon has. So we found that instead of a 9 by 9, if we used an 8 by 8, we would save huge amounts of money. Same is true for silverware. So if you buy plasticware utensils, a fork, a knife, and a spoon, a salt packet, a pepper packet, and a napkin, if you price all those out individually, you will find that you can get a packet that contains a salt, a pepper, a fork, a knife, and a napkin for less than half the price that Gordon has available to you. So sometimes you got to be creative, and we have outstanding Gordon support. I'm sure all of you do, but we're very impressed with our Gordon rep because we can call Matt on the phone, previously Jay, but now Matt. We can call Matt on the phone and we can say, hey, buddy, we need to go through this and identify something that's a lower cost alternative. Now, he knows that we don't want to reduce the quality of a particular product, but there are same quality products from a different brand that are less. So I would really recommend that you work very closely with your Gordon rep and try to find some of those items. So those are just two that I can tell you about right off the bat that I know we save more than 50% on our disposables just on those two items alone. And then in terms of costs, food costs in general, yeah, it's been pretty difficult. For a restaurant like us that serves beef and nothing but beef, and then we also have some exotics. We have elk, we have bear, we have buffalo burgers. You know, Halprin's has been a great partner with us, and they've been very good about letting Gordon know to let us know that, you know, this particular product is going to go up or it's going to go down. I'd encourage you to pay very close attention to the emails that you get from your Gordon leadership folks, those market reports, because they're going to allow you to plan ahead for things that you may want to take a look at. You know, if you see that tomatoes are going to go up or bacon's going to go up, or then that's kind of a cue for you to kind of immediately. I guess what I'm saying is you got to be proactive. You can't be reactive and sit back on your haunches and wait for something to happen and then try to fix it, because I'm telling you now, in this environment that we're in, you're too late.
Yeah.
I would agree. I think that's great advice. Going through the products and then as well as being proactive on the actual items that you're purchasing. We did have a question come in, a little bit of a different topic, but let's see. Had it, there we go. So has your same staff returned since the pandemic hit and you needed to close your restaurant, or have you had to hire new staff?
We were able to retain all but 6 staff members. We only furloughed 6 staff members, 2 hostesses and 2 busboys, because we had no tables to seat or wash or clean. 1 daytime cook, because we just didn't have any lunch sales once this all hit, and 1 server who was a great server, but he couldn't adapt to the to-go scenario. Otherwise, we retained everybody. And now we brought back the 2 busboys, but we weren't able to bring back the hostesses. They've gone on to other things now, and my daytime cook has gone elsewhere. So we're trying to rebuild to a certain extent. We also need a couple of servers at this point, because I have a couple moving. I had thought it was going to be pretty easy to get some new staff members in here, but we're finding that it's been actually really difficult. So I don't know if it's the unemployment check that they're still getting, which I kind of have a feeling might be, or what. But so we're kind of having some issues trying to get some people in here at this point. So, but we were able to retain most of them now.
Yeah, for most of our staff, nearly all of our staff came back. Nearly all. We did have a few who specifically said that they were not going to come back because they were fine hanging out at home and getting their unemployment check. Again, we tend to be very military and disciplined in our approach. And so I did not have any problem sending their name and social security number to our Texas Workforce Commission rep and letting them know that our employees had been offered a position elsewhere and had declined. I did that for both when we closed 2 of our restaurants, we offered them all positions at our other restaurants. Now, one of them in particular is about 30 miles away from the other restaurant. So a lot of them happen to live in between. So a lot of them just went over to the other restaurant and picked up the slack for the increase to-go orders and curbside and that kind of thing that we were doing. But with those that did not take it, we did the same thing. We put their name on a list and sent it to our TWC rep and let them know for unemployment purposes that they had been offered a position. And we also objected when the TWC letter came. But nearly all of our people came back. I think only 2 didn't. Now, we did have one unique situation, and that is that we had a cook who was living with their parent. I'm trying not to use he or her so I don't identify them, but they were living with their parent. The parent tested positive for COVID-19. Our policy that we had at our company is that if someone tested positive, or if they had someone that they were living with that was high risk, that would prevent them from really getting out, they really shouldn't have got out, then we paid them for 30 days. So we gave them 4 weeks of pay, and we just continued to pay them. Now, at the end of that 4 weeks, we stopped paying them. But that we felt that kind of encouraged people to stay home if they were supposed to stay home and not have to worry too much about the paycheck. And what we did was we went back for the last 30 days prior to, we compared the 30 days to last year, same 30 days. So we didn't go back to December when our sales are traditionally low anyway. We went back to last year, same period. And we took the average of that position, how much money they made, and that was the amount that we used to pay the people with. That seemed to work out really well. Those people, we had that one person in particular, we had one person whose family member tested positive, and we had one person who lived with elderly parents and their child had some significant cardiac anomalies. And they just felt it wasn't safe for them to come back to work. And all she did was call us and let us know, and we put them on salary for a month, and then eventually she dropped off and decided not to come back to work. That particular person did. But that was just one. So we were lucky. We only lost one person through that. And then the other one, it hasn't been a month yet, so we don't know whether she's going to come back or not. We assume she will.
I like that approach. Yeah, that's really encouraging to keep people home. So this one's kind of for Charlie and then for all of you guys to chime in. I'm sure we might get some questions, but you know, one concern that we hear from operators who are hesitant to begin or continue using delivery companies is the fees that they charge. So how do you justify the fees? Do you pass the fee on to your customer? Are you raising your menu prices? Add a larger delivery fee, or do you just accept the smaller profit? And I guess for Charlie, what do you guys advise your clients to do when you're getting started with using a company like DoorDash?
Yeah, great question. And when I saw this one on there, I was like, great, this is one that we get all the time. I think there's a couple ways to think of it, and I can say this having worked with restaurants from a couple different perspectives within the business. One is that when you're looking at the customer and the customer's behavior, if that customer is someone that is not, or making the decision that night not to come into your restaurant, then it's advantageous to find a way to connect to that customer. And that's all delivery apps, whether you have 2 in your area, 3 in your area. I think that it's beneficial to do that and to use them and to find ways to aggregate and make it very easy. The second perspective of it is, I guess, of how you can justify the cost, and with looking at it as that customer's not coming into the restaurant, is that your rent and your labor are things that are being paid no matter whether you get an order from DoorDash or not. And so, or any delivery in that capacity, but that customer is not going to come in that day. And so ultimately the thing that you would consider with that customer that may place that order is your food costs and the cost of getting and acquiring that customer, which is typically whatever a commission rate is that you negotiate. The second perspective that I kind of bring with having the unique opportunity to work on a couple different sides of our business is there's really 2 ways to create off-premise, and I'm sure Rick can speak to this, having operated delivery, is you can do it through your website where you're offering that to customers, or by phone, where it may be a little bit harder to find those loyal customers that come back to you, or it may not. But the second factor of that is that it is probably pretty challenging for restaurants, especially in this time, to maintain and pay a delivery fleet with insurance, liability, and all the factors that go into that, where the cost to be on a marketplace seems expensive at the time. The ease of use for most people that are using it is probably a little bit easier to use that marketplace, where you turn on a tablet, there's an existing customer base, the orders come in sporadically or all at once, and you're able to just hand the food to a driver versus having to worry about everything on the back.
Yeah, 2 good perspectives. If you guys have anything to add to that or personal experiences?
I definitely see the benefit of it, and I've run the numbers to try and consider doing delivery ourselves, and it's just, I don't know, to me it's just not possible. The fact that you can have a driver at your fingertips with DoorDash, when you do get those surges of orders come in, if you need 6 drivers within a 20-minute window, DoorDash is your answer, or whatever other company you're using. If we were doing our own delivery, that's not feasible. So I get the positives to it for sure. I just would like to get those fees down just a little bit. I loved the fact that DoorDash offered that 50% decrease during the month of April and May. I thought that was fantastic of them. Obviously they can't do that forever, but we sure wish they would.
Yeah, I'm a little tougher probably than Phil is. I'm going to be a little tougher with Charlie. Now, we don't have a partnership with DoorDash, to be fair. We do have other delivery partners, nearly all of them. And we have, in a couple of restaurants, we have a couple of local delivery options that are like DoorDash and Grubhub and ChowNow. So to be fair to Charlie, we don't have DoorDash. But the fees are high. I think in reality, I think there are very few restaurants that can afford that 25%, 26% increase in cost. I think there's very few that can do that. The big chains, of course, they can do that, but they're playing with other people's money. They're publicly held. For those of us that play with our own money, that can be a big shot to the gut. I will tell you, so I disagree with Charlie's first premise, but I heartily agree with his second premise. You really need to view those fees as more than just a hit to your margin. You need to look at the customer database like he was talking about. They have a huge number of customers that perhaps may not have ever used you before. And you need to kind of include a little bit of that fee as your marketing budget, a little bit of that fee as a substitution for your own delivery service. We did operate our own delivery service for a couple of years. It is expensive, but it's still only about 11 to 13%. So it's still not nearly as high as what the delivery services charge you. We did increase our menu prices for delivery. Our guests are well aware that those menu prices are higher, and to be completely honest, they don't seem to care. They understand that there's going to be an increased fee because of the convenience attached to going online and ordering it like that. So I can tell you that a lot of our guests, and again, we're in suburban and rural areas. So if our suburban and rural guests don't care that much, I'm going to guess that the folks in the urban areas probably are even less concerned about it. So I will agree that those, you know, Phil was nice about it. I'm less nice about it. I think the fees are too high. And frankly, I applaud what's been going on in San Francisco and Los Angeles, where they have legislated a reduction in those fees in their particular jurisdiction. Again, I don't mind paying the extra. I just think it's too much. Because remember that that's just the base fee. Now, again, I don't have DoorDash. I'm not talking about DoorDash. But with our delivery partners, that's just the base fee. Then if you want to be higher in the search engine, or you want to show up as a banner, or you got to pay more for that. So it can be quite expensive if you're not careful about that. So we've had great success with our delivery partners. I would encourage you to look at it, but don't look at it in a way where you're simply saying, we can't afford this. I imagine that most of your guests won't mind paying the higher prices. So we have a menu that we upload to our delivery partners, and you know who they are without me having to mention them, because DoorDash is here, and I don't want to be disrespectful to DoorDash. But you know, to any of your delivery partners, you have a delivery menu, and then you have the in-house menu. And it is what it is. And frankly, our guests haven't said a word. And on that note, we did increase our prices twice this year. We normally have an increase in January. It doesn't happen every year. In fact, it hadn't happened for 4 years. And then this year in January, we increased our prices, and then COVID hit, and then we had to increase our prices again. But our guests took the explanation, never gave us a hard time. There's always one or two, okay, who will be upset about it. But generally, 95% of the time, haven't had any concerns at all.
Charlie, I got 2 questions for you, if I may. One is, I had heard that DoorDash doesn't allow you to raise your prices compared to what you offer your website. So yeah. Is that true or no?
Not necessarily true. I think that the way that we like to look at it, and I was actually going to echo Rick's point in saying, with putting menus on third parties, it's always up to your discretion on how you do that. I think when we say that and when we say, no, that's not what we want, I think what we want to avoid is trying to create marketplace competition where you have one menu that's priced differently if you're using, let's say, multiple different services, one menu that's priced differently from another menu, and then are driving them to different menus. And one of the points that I was going to make, which was a good one that Rick brought up, was if you are able to operate your own delivery fleet, and I think that my bosses would probably slap me on the wrist for this, but it's something that's coming from working with restaurants is if you are trying to operate your own delivery fleet, one of the biggest challenges is probably creating a loyal customer base, especially if you're in a big city with a lot of competition. And one of the reasons that those third-party apps are great is providing that great experience through third-party allows you to then try and convert that customer to an in-house delivery or in-house diner. And that's something that, having worked in New York and Manhattan, where it's super competitive, a lot of restaurants do a really good job of that, of creating native channels and hiring delivery drivers, and then finding creative ways to convert customers to their in-house delivery by offering discounts and incentives that obviously would be less than the delivery fee that you'd be paying by using a third party. The one thing I was going to say to disagree with Rick on one point was with regard to DoorDash, and I know the competitor that you are referencing because New York, they are the biggest one there. But with the fees involved in that, it does count with marketing, and it does encapsulate credit card fees and handling the delivery there. It also does factor in the placement within the app, but depending on obviously where your city is or where your restaurant is, the competition's a little bit different than what I'm used to looking at in Manhattan. So.
Now, one of the challenges that we have, Charlie, with our delivery services, and I would be interested in hearing what DoorDash's policy is, but one of our challenges that we have is that we can have several deliveries with our delivery partner, and we will have 3 or 4 separate drivers in the restaurant, in the lobby, waiting for those, as opposed to sending one driver or 2 drivers and having them do multiple deliveries. Each driver is taking a separate one. It kind of wreaks a little havoc on the chaos level.
Yep. I think that it's something that all delivery companies are looking at. It's something that I know that we're doing and have actually had to kind of speed up the timeline on because of COVID, where in New York City we were doing deliveries with hospitals and food kitchens. And so what we had to try and create was something that we called routes, which was basically a driver to go in, pick up an order from somewhere or pick up multiple orders. And then in the app or in the driver app, it creates the best route for that driver to handle all of those deliveries in a quick fashion. I think that that's a challenge that I know that we're trying to address because it also just is driver efficiency. Dispatching 3 drivers to pick up 3 orders that are going within 5 minutes of each other doesn't really make sense. But I think it's a little bit more challenging of a logistical problem on the back end than just routing one driver and saying, figure out a way to go deliver all 3 of these. It's something I personally would love to get addressed because I still get those messages sometimes.
The other question I had is regarding commissions. So I know of some restaurants in my area that their commission rate is only 14%. And then I know other restaurants that are like almost 30%. I ever thought about just doing one flat rate across the board so it's kind of equal and fair for everybody?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wouldn't be able to speak to necessarily the individual rates of different restaurants based on, I can say from having been in certain markets, one of the factors there is just like when they signed up. The other is that we did at one point last year test out a service that's we call it demand generation, which is basically something that Grubhub offers, or Grubhub and Seamless have offered for a number of years. And I think that's what they were created on, was offering a way to market and receive demand, but you ultimately are responsible for fulfilling the delivery. So therefore, most times when I hear a commission rate of anywhere from 10 to 15%, or even a little bit higher than that, around 18, typically that is associated with the restaurant using their own drivers. I can't speak to the individuals. I wish I could, but I know that that's kind of how we've functioned in different markets that I've been in.
I know the restaurant that I specifically know is at 14% is just the amount of volume that they do with DoorDash. DoorDash is making some good money off of them. So, but other people I've talked to about DoorDash and other restaurants I've recommended it to, it's like they're coming back at them at 26 and 30%. It's like, well, I'm not paying that, so why should they? So Just checking to see.
We did have someone that Frank commented. He just wanted to chime in with you guys, and he said that his restaurant's been using DoorDash for 6 months, and they've seen an additional increase of sales to date, $19,000 an increase. And the customers who use DoorDash have commented about the difference in prices from the regular menu. He said they did increase their prices to cover the 28% commission. So even though they are commenting on it, they're still seeing an increase in sales. And he also said the dashes are quick to arrive. So he's very happy with the service. Thank you, Frank.
28%. Ooh.
Yeah, and I can give a little bit of an anecdote to a restaurant that I worked with. It's a pizza place in Buffalo, New York. They're the largest wing distributor in the entire country. They've been around for roughly 85 years. And when I walked into the restaurant, they laughed at me probably the 10 times that I tried to go visit. I am very close with them. I've helped them do a number of things, fix their menus on constant cases. I actually helped them integrate with their POS provider this past couple of weeks. And they actually saw an uptick of roughly 500 orders, doing about 500 every 30 days. And then when they integrated with their POS, because they had to turn off the tablet, they were able to add another 500 because now they never have to turn it off. But the one story I wanted to give is that they were very hard-nosed guys. They got us to negotiate a rate with them, obviously, but it was about 2.5 years ago, which was a different time for DoorDash. What he said to me the other week when I was talking to him was like, I appreciate you answering your phone for every phone call that I give you during this difficult time. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. I thought you were full of shit when you told me that this would work back 2 years ago. But on average, they do roughly anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 in sales just through DoorDash. And they also have a huge in-house business. And like I said, are the biggest wing distributor in the country. So, I think it's like I look at it from the perspective of like, try everything. I know that most delivery services out there don't charge anything to cancel at any time. So I think it's great to try it out and give it a chance. And especially with us offering 0% for 30 days, it's a nice way to look at it, be able to give yourself a little bit of a test. And like Phil said, really crunch the numbers and see if it works for your business. And ultimately, if it doesn't, I don't think that any of the services are going to penalize you for that at all.
That's a great point. So we're going to go to one question around safety, and it probably is going to be our last one. So if anyone that is participating, any of our attendees have questions, please type those in. So we know that the safety of our people is the most important. What new safety precautions have you guys put in place for your employees as well as your customers, and what has worked, what has not worked?
Go ahead, Rick.
Oh, so we follow the CDC guidelines. I chose, because I'm a nurse, I chose not to follow the Trump guidelines. And I'm not making a snide comment for those of you that are Trump supporters. I just say we chose not to follow Trump guidelines. We follow the CDC and the World Health Organization regulations and guidelines. We don't follow anything else. So, and that includes with our local health department. When our health department has come in and said, everybody's wearing gloves, we've said, nope, we're not going to wear gloves. And here's the reason why we're not wearing gloves. Gloves are really, if you look at it, for example, gloves are really no different than your hands. They're just not. Unless you're going to change your glove between every single interaction that you have with a guest or with a food tray, there's no point to buying gloves. It's the same as your hands. So we follow effective hand washing. We follow the happy birthday song. We teach our employees that they sing happy birthday in their head or out loud if people think it's fun, to when they're washing their hands, to make sure they do it. We make sure that our soap dispensers are filled. That's one of our checks now that we do. We didn't used to do this. We used to have 3 times a day bathroom and soap checks. Now it's every hour. Every hour, the paper towels are checked, the bathrooms are checked for cleanliness, the soap dispensers are checked to make sure that they're full enough. Like many of you, we did have a very hard time finding hand sanitizer. Now, again, as a nurse, I can tell you that hand sanitizer is not supposed to be used every single time. And in fact, if your hands get something on them, like a food product, you're supposed to wash them. Hand sanitizer doesn't get off gross contamination. I don't mean gross as in disgusting. I mean actual contamination. So you need to wash your hands when that happens. Hand sanitizer should not be used over and over. In fact, it should be used 3 to 5 times, and then you're supposed to wash your hands. So we actually went to our alcohol distributor and found out who the whiskey manufacturers were and places like that, because as you know, many of those companies, those distilleries, started creating hand sanitizer during this process. So we got a couple of contacts, and then I have a buddy that owns a distillery just north of us in Missouri, and I had him ship us hand sanitizer that he started making. So that's how we kind of went about doing it. Our tables are cleaned after every use, including underneath and around. Now, we didn't used to clean underneath the tables where people might grab onto the edge of the table as they sat down. We didn't used to do that, to be completely honest. I don't know really who did. We certainly did a good job of cleaning the top, but I don't think we ever thought about that. So we now clean around the edges and the bottoms. At night, I probably have an extra 45 minutes or so of labor because our employees are now cleaning the table posts underneath. We're mopping the floors and scrubbing them really well. We use to-go containers. We use to-go silverware. We don't use plates and dishes anymore, even though we used to serve those. I think we're probably going to go back to that at some point, but right now, for now, we're still using to-go containers. Like I said, we're saving money by cutting them down the middle and using each side as a plate. Then we put a paper wrap in it, and we throw some fries and the burger in there, and off we go. We don't use our red baskets. Drinks, we don't allow. We're full table service, like Phil's restaurant. Although Phil has busboys, we don't have busboys, so Phil's probably more high end than we are. But we used to have refills. Now, if a guest wants a refill, we use a new cup. A lot of our guests, noticing that, though, have said, no, I don't need a refill. They've actually been very good about that. But for those that do, we don't mind. We just give them a new cup now. We use only 2 sizes of cups. We use 32 ounces and 16 ounces. And those are the only 2 sizes we use. And again, we haven't really seen our disposable cost increase, especially once we were able to sit down with our rep and identify some lower cost items to do that. So, mostly we're paying more attention. We do have masks. We got masks made that have our logo on them. And like I said, we're a little crass. So, we were going to have a funky saying on there. So what we did was we essentially just put the character swear words across the mouth part. So we have an ampersand and a $sign and an exclamation point, some other things, and then our logo underneath on the chin. We don't require our guests to wear masks. We do ask them to wash their hands, and we have hand sanitizer at the beginning. We don't do temperature checks, but we do have a sign that specifically says if you're symptomatic. I think that sign personally is stupid, and I have been known to rip it down at a couple of places because you don't know if you have it or not. A great number of people, the CDC says upwards of 20% of the U.S. population has already had COVID and didn't know they had it. So you can be completely asymptomatic and walk in the restaurant. So to me, the temperature checks and if you have a symptom just make any sense. So we don't do any of that. So those are the things that we have done. Other than masks are required and the more frequent hand washing, and it has been more frequent, completely honest. You get caught up in how busy things are, and sometimes people don't wash their hands as often as possible. We've certainly made great strides in making sure that our hand washing is much better than it probably has been in the past. So I think for us, we're just more cognizant. Oh, I was also going to tell you that folks like Phil and I with full beards, Charlie's trying, he's not quite there yet. For those of us with full beards, masks are completely ineffective. Completely. It doesn't make any sense for us to wear masks. They're completely ineffective. And every health person knows that. So sometimes I'll wear a mask, but I know, and most healthcare people know, that I'm doing it just to make the other person feel better. But it's completely ineffective. So if you have guests with beards or you have anyone with beards, requiring them to wear a mask isn't going to do anything except piss people off. So we just don't do it.
Are you requiring beard nets? That was a question that just came in.
Yeah, for the cooks in the back, our service staff doesn't wear hairnets, they don't wear beard nets. That's required where we are in our jurisdiction. So.
What about you, Phil? Any safety precautions that have changed?
Yeah, of course we're doing the sanitation stations, and we are wearing the masks, and although they're becoming more cumbersome every day, it's that warm and fuzzy that it gives the guests. They want to see them. At this point, I'd rather not lose a guest that walks in and doesn't see a mask and walk out when we're trying to gain some more business. So we're sticking with the masks. Gloves are no, but just like Rick said, that's just a facade. We'd much rather see constant hand washing. Door handles, things like that, we're paying more mind to that we probably didn't in the past. So we're spraying all those down more often now. Of course, like I said, the paper menus. When our guests walk in, we normally would bring the silverware for them. Now we have it set up in the front so where they can either grab the regular rolled silverware, real silverware, or we also have disposable cutlery kits right next to those. So we let them choose which one they would prefer, and we're letting them grab it themselves. Unless they could just care less, we're asking them to grab their own silverware. Just one less area to have contact with. And there again, it's just more of a warm and fuzzy feeling for them than it really does anything, because we roll the damn silverware anyway. So, but just trying to let them see that we are taking it seriously and we're trying to do what we can.
Well, great.
I was going to say I can give the delivery approach and to safety and precaution as well. And Rick, I've been trying to grow a beard like yours for 30 years, so I follow it. A couple of things that we're doing just on our side, and I think as a customer and having used different delivery apps, I think all of them are trying to do the same things, and it's worked great from my understanding and experiences as a customer. But we're providing all of the dashers with gloves and masks so that when they're entering the restaurants, they're as sanitary as possible and protecting themselves as well. And a second is just contactless delivery, which I'm sure some of you have experienced either as a customer or having worked with third party. But what that means is when they arrive at the customer, instead of having that interaction where normally they hand the bag, the food, especially, or at least on DoorDash, when they arrive at the customer gets a notification. They can leave special instructions, whether to ring a doorbell, do etc. That way they can go and get the food quickly from the door. But from my knowledge, that's worked really well right now.
Yeah, our paper menus, we don't give one per guest. We use paper menus as well, but we don't give one per guest. If it's a table of two, we generally give them one to choose from. We just give them one. Ours is only front and back, and our printing costs haven't been, like Phil's menu is much larger than ours, so his costs are going to be dramatically different. But for us, it's the same exact menu. It's just not in a sleeve. It's just a piece of paper that we flip front and back.
Yeah.
Well, great.
Oh,
go ahead.
And I'm sorry, Ashley. Don't let your servers hold the food against themselves. I see that a lot. It's really, in this day and age, you really, please don't let your servers do that, because we're used to grabbing drinks and holding them up, and, I know it's money to get those table trays, but those trays are really, really important right now to try to keep your contact and social distancing and those things down to a minimum. So we stopped that. We, again, that's kind of what we do, right? We just grab our stuff and take it out to the table. That's what we've done for years and years and years, but we don't do that anymore. And we actively stop it. If we're in a store and we see that happening, we say to them, no more of that. Can't do that anymore. So.
That's a good point. Well, that is going to conclude our session today. I thank you guys very much, Charlie, Phil, and Rick, for being our panelists today. There's been so much great information. All of this has been recorded, so everyone that's registered and attended will get a copy of this recording tomorrow afternoon. It will be emailed to you. So again, thank you guys. On behalf of Gordon Food Service, we really appreciate being partnered with all of you, and stay tuned for session 3 as we will dive a little bit deeper.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.